powerful man in the world woke up one morning and thought he was an ox, he left the palace. He went to the fields. He started eating grass on all fours. His hair grew long. His nails curled like birds' claws. His body was drenched by the dew that fell at night. And he lived this way for 7 years. The man who had ruled the greatest empire in the world, who had built one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, who had razed Jerusalem to the ground, among herds of animals, in the mud, in the fields. The story appears in the Torah, it appears in the Bible, it appears in the Quran. This king, named by all 3 holy books, is remembered most of all for going mad and eating grass like an animal. In 1999, the Wachowski siblings named the ship in the Matrix after him. That is not a coincidence. This is not a story about a king. This is a story about what happens when arrogance reaches its peak. And that is why it is still being told 2,600 years later. History books usually tell us about wars, conquests, great empires. But sometimes there is a story so strange, so striking, carrying such deep meaning, that it passes from tongue to tongue for centuries. Today, I'm going to tell you one such story. The story of Nebuchadnezzar, the greatest king of Babylon. But this is not just a historical story about a king. It is also a story of madness, a story of awakening, a lesson in arrogance. Such a powerful story that in 1999, when the Wachowski siblings were making the Matrix film, they named the ship that saves humanity Nebuchadnezzar. A coincidence? Absolutely not. I'll tell you why they chose that name at the end of this video, but first we must ask, did this man really go mad? Is it medically possible? And if it is, what does it take to drive the most powerful man in the world out of his mind? If you enjoy these kinds of deep history stories, you might want to consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel right now. Because this is only the beginning of what I have to tell you. And let me say this, after this story is over, the next time you hear someone powerful say, "I did this," I'm certain Nebuchadnezzar will appear somewhere in the back of your mind. 605 BC Babylon. Young Nebuchadnezzar returned from the battlefield the moment he received news of his father's death and sat on the throne, alone, in 7 days. Because power tolerates no vacuum. He knew this very well. And he didn't step down for 43 years. During these years, he made Babylon the undisputed center of the ancient world. When you picture Babylon, what do you imagine? A large city? No. Babylon was a metropolis of unimaginable scale for its time. Its population was approximately 200,000 people. It was surrounded by a double wall stretching 11 miles, nearly 18 kilometers. These walls were so thick that 4 horse-drawn war chariots could pass side by side on top of them. In the center of the city stood a tower called Itemenanki, 91 meters tall, that's roughly a 30-story building. In the 6th century BC, built by hand, brick by brick. Some academics say this is the famous Tower of Babel from the scriptures. You know that story, people trying to build a tower to reach the heavens and God confusing their languages. Then he had the Ishtar Gate built. That enormous gate covered in bright blue tiles, decorated with lion, bull, and dragon figures. You can see that gate in Berlin today. The Germans dismantled it piece by piece in the 19th century and took it away. It stands in a museum. Even its reconstructed form takes your breath away. And of course, the Hanging Gardens. According to legend, his wife Amethyst came from the mountains of Media. She felt suffocated on the flat, hot, dusty plains of Babylon and longed for her homeland. Nebuchadnezzar said, "I will bring the mountains to you," and had terrace gardens built 25 meters high right in the middle of the city. Different trees, flowers, and plants on each level. A massive irrigation system to carry water upward. These gardens are counted among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. But here's something interesting. Whether these gardens truly existed is still debatable. No direct trace has been found in Babylon's own archaeological records. But what matters is this. People attributed this magnificent structure to Nebuchadnezzar because he was the only man capable of building such things. Myth and reality had become so intertwined that separating them had become nearly impossible. But what Nebuchadnezzar didn't stop there. He had irrigation canals dug. He built roads. He renovated the ziggurat temples. Babylon ceased to be merely a city and transformed into the symbol of a civilization. The man left such a great mark that today, if you open any book about ancient Mesopotamia, you'll come across the name Nebuchadnezzar every few pages. This is the mark of true power. When people start attributing incredible things to you, you are no longer just a human being. You have become a symbol. But Nebuchadnezzar didn't only commission buildings, he also made war. And the most important, most bloody of those wars was waged against Jerusalem. 597 BC, Nebuchadnezzar came to Jerusalem with his army. He besieged the city. The king surrendered. He plundered the treasures that Solomon's temple had been accumulating for centuries. And he drove the city's leading figures, its craftsmen, its intellectuals, en masse to Babylon. This is called the First Babylonian Exile. He installed a puppet king in his place and returned. 10 years passed. The puppet king rebelled. Nebuchadnezzar almost certainly received this news calmly, because he knew very well how to deal with rebellion. 587 BC. The army stands before Jerusalem again. This time was different. Nebuchadnezzar besieged the city for 18 months. 18 months, more than a year and a half. Those inside died of hunger, thirst, and disease. The streets filled with corpses. Finally, the walls fell. What Nebuchadnezzar did when he entered was recorded as one of history's most cold-blooded acts of savagery. He captured the rebel king Zedekiah. He had the man brought before his eyes. He killed his children one by one, so that the last thing he saw would be the death of his children. Then he gouged out Zedekiah's eyes. Solomon's temple was burned, destroyed. The entire population was driven into exile in Babylon. Think about it, Solomon's temple. Considered in Jewish tradition to be the earthly home of God, this structure had stood for approximately 400 years. Generations had come and gone. The existence of that temple was a certainty, a guarantee, an identity, and Nebuchadnezzar burned it. This was not just a building, this was the soul of a nation. And when it burned, a people was reduced to ashes in a sense as well. This period, which went down in history as the Babylonian captivity, lasted approximately 70 years. This event is told in the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran. Nebuchadnezzar's name was carved into 3 holy scriptures. But here's the interesting thing. The Torah does not portray Nebuchadnezzar solely as an enemy. In the book of Jeremiah, God says explicitly, "I will send my servant Nebuchadnezzar." So the Jews were being punished for their sins, and God was using Nebuchadnezzar as an instrument for that punishment. And this violence did not take place in a vacuum. Centuries later, these scenes were written into holy texts. They were told across generations. Mothers told their children. Rabbis told their congregations. Because to forget was to let it live again, and to remember was a form of resistance. A pagan king described as an instrument of God. This contradiction forms the foundation of the main story in the book of Daniel. According to the book of Daniel, one night Nebuchadnezzar had a very strange dream. In his dream there was a massive tree. Its height stretched from the ground to the heavens. Its branches touched the sky. Its shade covered the entire world. Birds sheltered in its branches. Animals rested beneath it. People were nourished by its fruit. Then an angel descended from heaven and cried out, "Cut down this tree, break off its branches, strip off its leaves, but leave its root, and until 7 times pass, let it live not among people but among animals." Nebuchadnezzar woke in the morning sweating, his breath cut short. He summoned all his advisors, fortune tellers, and wise men. No one could interpret it. Either they didn't know, or they were afraid to interpret it. Finally, Daniel was summoned. He was one of the young Jewish men brought from Jerusalem during the first Babylonian exile. Intelligent, wise, honest. Nebuchadnezzar trusted him. Perhaps the only person in the empire he trusted. Daniel heard the dream, and his face changed. It filled with worry, with grief. Nebuchadnezzar noticed. What happened? What does the dream mean? Daniel spoke. If only this dream applied to your enemies, O king. But it does not. That massive tree is you. You have grown, become powerful, risen to the heavens, but you showed arrogance. You placed yourself above everything. You forgot where true power comes from. Therefore, God has made a decision. You will lose your human mind. You will live among animals. You will eat grass like cattle, and this will last 7 times, until you understand true sovereignty belongs to the Most High God. Silence. Daniel continued, but the root will be left in place. Your kingdom will not end. If you confess your sins, perhaps this thing can be kept away from you. Nebuchadnezzar heard this prophecy. Did he understand? Perhaps. Did he take it seriously? Almost certainly not. Because in this man's life, everything had always worked out. He had won every war. He had overcome every obstacle. Why should this time be any different? Was Daniel afraid while delivering this interpretation? Probably yes. Because telling a powerful king that he would go mad meant putting your life at risk. But Daniel said it anyway. Honesty is sometimes the highest form of courage. Life returned to normal. A full year passed. One afternoon, Nebuchadnezzar was strolling on the roof of his palace. The city of Babylon stretched out before him, the blue tiles of the Ishtar Gate gleaming in the sun, the Itamananki Tower reaching toward the sky, canals flowing through the city, buildings, temples, gardens, all his creation. And in that moment, Nebuchadnezzar spoke, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" According to the book of Daniel, the moment these words left his mouth, a voice came from heaven. "King Nebuchadnezzar, I am telling you, your kingdom has been taken from you." And in that instant, Nebuchadnezzar lost his mind. Nebuchadnezzar suddenly went mad. He left his palace and went out to the fields, to the plains. He began to walk on all fours. He began to eat grass, just like cattle, raw grass. Muddy, wet, uncooked. His body was drenched by the dew that fell at night. His hair grew long. As the months passed, it grew longer, becoming long and wild like eagle feathers. His nails grew, taking on a curved, hardened shape like birds' claws. He roamed among herds of animals. No one recognized him. Or perhaps they recognized him but didn't approach. Because this man was no longer a king, nor even a human, and he lived this way. For 7 full years, the most powerful man in the world, in the fields, in the mud, eating grass. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? In Babylon's own historical records, in the cuneiform tablets, this event is never mentioned. Only the book of Daniel contains this story. So there are 2 big questions. Did it really happen? And medically, what was this? Let's start with the second one. Modern medicine has coined a term for this condition: clinical lycanthropy. The word comes from Greek, lykos, meaning wolf, anthropos, meaning human. But this term is used not only for people who think they are wolves, but for anyone who believes themselves to be any animal. This illness is real. There are documented cases in medical literature. Patients can see themselves as dogs, cats, goats, even bees. They try to walk on all fours. They make animal sounds. It is usually seen alongside schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or severe depression. Another theory is the disease porphyria. In this rare metabolic disorder, lesions form on the skin, tolerance to sunlight decreases, behavioral disorders, and even psychosis can occur. Some historians even argue that this is the origin of the medieval vampire legend. The third theory is bipolar disorder. Looking at Nebuchadnezzar's 43-year reign, we see enormous projects, conquests, and magnificent construction works. These are classic features of a manic phase. Then a sudden and profound collapse, severe depression combined with psychosis. And beyond all these medical theories, this must be said. Throughout history, similar patterns have been seen in people who held great power. A total collapse, a total break. Perhaps psychiatric, perhaps neurological, or perhaps simply being crushed under a weight too great for any human to bear. Whatever happened to Nebuchadnezzar, he was not alone. All of this is speculation, because we don't have sufficient medical data. So did it really happen? There are 2 camps. The first camp says this is an allegorical story. It didn't happen in a literal sense, but it was written to deliver a message. Jewish exiles told this story while living in Babylon. This king who crushes us will one day fall. His arrogance will destroy him, they said, and they told it through a powerful metaphor. The second camp says, perhaps it really happened, but it was never written into Babylon's records. Because something like this would have been deeply shameful for a king. Powerful empires did not record such vulnerabilities. And here's an interesting historical detail. In the final years of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, roughly between 570 and 562 BC, there are almost no records from Babylon at all, as if the man simply wasn't there. Some researchers say this gap overlaps with the dream and madness story. There is no definitive answer, but perhaps the power of the story lies precisely in this uncertainty. 7 years passed. In the book of Daniel, these words are written in Nebuchadnezzar's own voice. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored to me. I praised the Most High God. Short, simple, but so profound. The man had been crawling on the ground for 7 years. Then a moment came, and he looked up to the heavens. And in that gaze, something changed. His mind returned. He went back to his palace. He became king again. His advisors, his generals, his palace staff welcomed him back. We don't know how these 7 years unfolded or how the palace was governed during that time. Most likely, a regent ruled in his place. The records say nothing, but then powerful rulers also control what doesn't get recorded. And then Nebuchadnezzar said, Now, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride he is able to humble. Pay attention to that last sentence. This is not just a religious declaration. This is a personal confession. I walked in pride, he is saying, and I was humbled. I learned to be humble. Nebuchadnezzar died in 562 BC. He had reigned for exactly 43 years. And with his death, Babylon's star quickly faded. His son ascended the throne, but was weak. He fell to assassination. Others came after, and they didn't last long either. Only 23 years after Nebuchadnezzar's death, in 539 BC, Persian King Cyrus the Great entered Babylon without any major battle. 23 years. The greatest empire in the world collapsed in 23 years. One of the first things Cyrus did was free the Jewish exiles. He allowed them to return home. He gave back the temple artifacts. The captivity that had lasted 70 years came to an end. Nebuchadnezzar's greatest construction, the city of Babylon, stands today on Iraqi soil as nothing more than mounds of mud and rubble. The Hanging Gardens are gone. The Ishtar Gate is in Berlin. The Itamanenki Tower is level with the ground. All that grandeur turned to dust, but the story remained. 1999. The Wachowski siblings are filming The Matrix. The name of the ship that saves humanity in the film, Nebuchadnezzar. And written on the ship's plaque, Mark 3:11. This is a reference to Mark 3:11 in the Bible. Open that verse, and it reads, Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, You are the Son of God. A direct reference to Neo being the Messiah. Why Nebuchadnezzar? Because The Matrix is also a story of awakening. People are living inside an illusion. In a world manufactured by machines, perfect in appearance but false, they cannot see the truth. Then Morpheus comes. He extends the red pill. Do you want to see the truth? He says, the truth is painful. The real world in the Matrix is cold, dark, desolate, but it is real. Just like Nebuchadnezzar. The man sat in his palace. Everything was perfect, or at least appeared to be, but it was hollow inside. Arrogance had filled everything. 7 years of eating grass in the fields was painful. It was shameful, but it was real, and that reality transformed him. Nebuchadnezzar is both destroyer and savior, both illusion and awakening, both power and collapse, both arrogance and humility. The ship in the Matrix carries this symbolism, and at the center of it all is a 2,600-year-old story. So what do we take from this story? Nebuchadnezzar was the most powerful man in the world. Truly powerful. Archaeology proves this. His constructions, his campaigns, his empire were real, but power blinded him. How does power blind a person? Slowly, insidiously. Every time you win a battle, you trust yourself a little more. Every time a construction is completed, you feel a little greater. Every time a rebellion is crushed, you feel a little more untouchable. And one day, standing on the roof of your palace, looking out over the city, you fail to see the people living in that city. The weeping mothers in Jerusalem that you plundered. The agony of a man whose children were killed before his eyes. The people sitting by the rivers in exile, weeping. You see only the buildings, your own name, your own greatness. And at that point, arrogance is no longer a thought. It is a state of being. It has taken over your existence. We see the same things today. Different names, different geographies, but the same story. People who reach power at some point transform into power itself. They no longer serve people. They expect people to serve them. Nebuchadnezzar died. Babylon fell. The empire collapsed, but the story remained. It has been told for 2,600 years. It entered the Holy Scriptures, and one day it became the name of a ship that saves humanity. Perhaps the greatest irony is that arrogance has such a powerful story. The man who thought himself the center of everything was carved into history by his own collapse. Just like in the Matrix, no matter how perfect the illusion appears, reality eventually hits you in the face. I hope you weren't bored watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because history is full of stories this wild, and I'm going to tell you every single one of them. Follow the white rabbit. Knock, knock, Neo.